What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to show you guys how to swap out your motor decals on your boat, whether it's a Nitro, Stratus, whatever the brand may be, doesn't matter. I got these decals from Garvon Studio. I'll put that name up above you. I'll also put their website down below for anybody who wants to check them out. I'm not affiliated with them whatsoever. Just really good decals that I wanted to show you guys, and I also wanted to show you the process of how to remove the old decals from the motor to then clean it properly and get it ready to apply these new decals. I got it in what's called the Ranger blue color. It's going to match the boat perfectly. Obviously, you can see my blue boat, color scheme. My talons are blue. It's just going to kind of tie in and match it very good. So yeah, let me get the camera a little bit closer. I'm going to show you guys exactly how to remove the old decals relatively easily. It's really not that hard. Some people tend to think it's a nightmare. It honestly is not if you do it properly. And then we'll get it cleaned up, and I'll show you how to get these applied without any air bubbles or creases. In order to get these decals off of the motor, very simple. All you're going to need is a heat gun. You can use a hair dryer, but a heat gun works much more effectively on the low setting. I got this thing from Walmart for like 15 bucks. I use it for everything, for crimping my when I'm doing wiring, for the butt connectors, for things like this, when I'm applying decals. This thing is well worth $15, so you don't have to go spending an arm and a leg to do this. Basically, all we're going to do is you can pick the side, front, or back, doesn't really matter where you start. And I'm going to use the heat gun on low, and I'm just going to heat up a section, peel it up, heat up another little section, peel it back, heat up another little section, and peel it back, and just keep doing that process until you get this off. When I did the other side, which I've already done already, because this is the first time I'm actually replacing decals on my motor. I have a lot of experience with decals. My wife actually has a little side business making custom decals, but when I did the other side, I was able to get this off. You may not get it in one big piece, but doing the process that I just mentioned, I was able to get it off in 3 pieces. And when I removed the whole thing, the residue that was left behind was extremely minimal. I had to do very minimal extra work to get the residue off in order to prep it and place the new decal. So again, heat gun on low. Just let it warm up for a second. And then all I'm going to do is I'll start back here on the back side and just heat up this back corner. And once you have it nice and warm, you can go ahead and start peeling it up. And again, don't try to rip off too much at once, because that's when the decal will start to tear and you'll end up getting it off in a million pieces. So I'm just doing it nice and slow, and as you can see, the decal is starting to come up in one big piece. So now that I have it started, I'm going to go ahead and heat up a little bit more in front of it. And basically all you're doing is you're just loosening up the adhesive. Makes it easier to peel off. Try not to heat up the piece that you already peeled off, because that'll make it very soft, and when you go to rip the next section, this will end up just ripping off on you. So we heated up the next little section. So again, we're just going to go nice and easy and just work your way down the entire decal until the whole thing is off. Alright, so I'm not going to show this whole thing on video. This is exactly what I'm going to do all the way down the decal until it's off, and then I'll give you a look at the surface and how doing it this way, the residue left behind, even this piece that I've already peeled off, there's no residue whatsoever. So all I'm going to have to do is wipe it with alcohol and prep it to get the new decal in place. So I'm just going to go ahead and repeat this all the way down until the decal is off. One little tip I'll give you is, if it does start to split, so far I have this off in one big piece, but if it does start to split where the lettering is higher or lower, just stop, heat that section up real quick, and just peel the corner where it ripped. Peel that down until you're back to one big piece. Just like that. And now we can continue. Oh. So there you go. Let's see if we can get this off just in 2 big pieces. So I'm just going to heat this up and basically just start over. But we got half of it off in one big piece. And again, back here you can see there's no residue left behind at all by doing it this way. Alright, so there we go. We were able to get this side off in 3 big pieces. And it took me a matter of maybe I don't even know, 3 or 4 minutes to remove it. So again, it's not all that hard. People tend to think this is an absolute nightmare. Very easy to do. One thing that I should have mentioned before I did this, which I've already done, if you want the decal in the exact same place, make sure you do something, and so when you're ready to put the new decal back on, and I'm going to show you how to position it and you know, make sure you lay it out properly with no bubbles, but just make sure you mark it somehow. What I did was I actually stood back a little bit, took a picture of it, so I have on my phone, so I'm able to kind of line up the new decal with, you know, the Mercury lettering above it. All right, so just make sure, if you want it in the same spot, make sure you kind of line it up or mark it somehow, so that way when you put the new decal on, you can get it in the exact same spot. All right, so now that that is off, we're ready to prep the surface, and we'll get ready to put the new one on. Before you prep the surface with the alcohol to wipe it down and clean it, you just want to make sure, again, the residue, if you do it this way, is very, very minimal, but I can see I have a tiny bit right here, a tiny bit right there, and that looks just about it. So all I'm going to do, well, maybe kind of just like a really small couple spots right in here, but basically all you're going to do to get that off, take the heat gun again, low setting, warm up the area, and then use some kind of adhesive remover. I have these little adhesive remover pads, but you can use Goo Gone or, you know, whatever you have handy to get this done. So again, just heat it up with the heat gun. It's going to loosen it up. Take your adhesive remover, wipe it off, and that'll help you remove all of this old residue. Again, very simple if you heat it up with the heat gun first. Comes off that easy. So once you have all your adhesive removed, you're just going to take some alcohol on a clean microfiber cloth and just wipe the entire surface down, making sure you get all that adhesive remover off of the motor and anything else that's actually on it. You want this nice and clean. Just use some rubbing alcohol. I'm using 70%. And then I'm going to flip the towel around, do it again, just to make sure we're good to go. The other key to this, guys, you want to do this when it's at least, I like to do decals when it's at least 60 to 65 degrees minimum. Now we're in my garage, which is heated, but thankfully today is a nice day. You're here in Northeast PA, it's almost 70 degrees today. So we have plenty, it's plenty warm enough to do this. So once you do that, just take a dry part of the towel and go over it one more time just to make sure all the alcohol is dry, which alcohol dries really fast, so that shouldn't be an issue. And now the surface is prepped, so let me show you how to get the decal ready. So let me show you how to get the decals ready to put on the motor or wherever else. This kind of applies to any kind of decal you're doing. When you get it from Garzon Studio or wherever you order it from, what you want to do before you try to apply it to wherever you're applying it, you want to make sure there's absolutely no air bubbles or pockets in between the top layer, which is clear, and the decal itself. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're just going to kind of look it over, and if you see any small, you'll be able to see them easily, little air bubbles or pockets, or sometimes depending on how they ship it to you, it could even be like a big air crease in it. All you're going to do is take your finger or something. You don't want to, you don't use anything sharp or that can puncture or tear this. I just use my finger. So literally I'm just going to find any little air pockets and just work them to the edge of the decal. And that way you want that decal, you want zero air in between the decal and the top layer. When we peel the back off to stick this, you don't want anything behind that either, but it's most important to get all of the air out of the space between the decal and the top layer. If you don't do that, I promise you, you are going to end up with bubbles and or creases, and it's just not going to look professionally done. It's not going to look as good as it should. So I'm going to kind of look this over. This one doesn't seem to be too bad. There's a couple small air pockets that I'm just going to work to the edge, and again, you'll be able to easily see them between this clear top layer and the decal. Okay, once you have all of the air bubbles and pockets removed in between the decal and that top layer, I'm going to use blue painter's tape. You want to use something like it's got like a clean release to it. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to put 2 long pieces, and this will make sense to you when you see what I'm going to do on the motor. I'm going to put 2 long pieces, one on each end of the decal. You don't have to do this for the smaller decals. You want to remove the air on the smaller decals. You want to do that with any decal. What I'm going to show you now, this little trick comes in handy for longer or larger decals. It, as you're going to see when we apply it to the motor, it just helps you get it lined up perfectly, and it also helps you lay it down on the motor, or again, any other surface you're working with, nice and flat. Okay, so you can see we have 2 long pieces of blue painter's tape, one on each end of the decal. So let's go over to the motor. We're ready to place this on the motor, and I'll show you exactly why we did that. All right, so we're ready to put this on the motor. I have my phone sitting here on the back deck so I can kind of eyeball it with the picture that I took with the red sticker, so I can kind of line it up and eyeball it, get it exactly where I want it. So I'm just using that picture for reference. And we still have the backing on this, so you can, it's not going to stick to the motor, just that blue painter's tape is going to stick, which obviously you can remove and not have any issues. So let me just get this lined up properly, and we're going to use that blue painter's tape to hold it in place temporarily. So once you have it where you want it, you can now take that blue painter's tape on one end, stick it so this side of the decal is not going to move on you. Just kind of, and this is another important step, take your hand, smooth it towards the back, make sure it's where you want it back here, and then stick the blue painter's tape in the back. Okay, now that we did that, I am going to take one more piece of blue painter's tape, and we're going to put it in the middle of the decal. Okay, I took a step back, eyeballed it, it's perfect, exactly where I want it. So let me show you, now it's going to make a little more sense to you why we have this blue painter's tape. Pick a side, whether it's the left side, right side, doesn't matter. I'm going to start with the bigger side. So all we're going to do is peel this side up now. So that blue painter's tape helps you temporarily stick it, but it's also going to help with this step here. The reason we have this piece in the middle, what we're going to do, we're going to peel this back. So this way we're only dealing with half the decal. So it's almost like you're literally separating this into 2 smaller decals. Just makes it easier to work with, obviously. Okay, so now that we have just half of the decal, we're going to come in here and we're just going to very slowly, with my right hand, I'm holding it back away from the motor. With my left hand, we're just going to go ahead and smooth it onto the motor. Just take your time, go nice and slow. Check for bubbles as you go. You can also use like a plastic, if you have any kind of like plastic spreader or something to do this. I'm going to use my hand just because my hand is big enough to cover the whole decal with this. And again, this is going to guarantee that you get no air bubbles, no pockets, no creases, nothing like that. So just little by little, stopping every couple inches just to make sure you have no pockets, which if you do this properly, you're not gonna. Okay, until we get all the way to the back. And then before you move on, just take your finger and rub all around the edges to make sure the edges of the decal underneath this top layer are properly seated onto the motor. So now that we have the back half properly seated, looks perfect, we're just going to go ahead and repeat the exact same process for the front half. Again, just holding the decal away from the motor, using your hand almost as a spreader, and just very slowly, carefully work it down. Stop, check for bubbles. Which again, if you do that step that I showed you earlier, where you're smoothing it out before you do anything else. You remove those air bubbles between the decal and this top clear layer. If you do that, applying it like this right now, you're gonna have a much easier time doing it this way, and you will not have to worry about air bubbles anywhere near as much as if you don't do that step. So that is a critical step in this whole process, getting those air bubbles out between the decal and this clear top layer. All right, so again, just take your finger, work your way around the edges, and then we're ready to peel back that top clear layer and take a look. Now when it comes to peeling off this top clear layer, you don't want to use any heat or anything like that for this. You don't want to heat up that decal. It could possibly stretch it or tear it. So you just want to take your time. That decal should be stuck to that motor extremely well at this point. So you just slowly peel back the top clear layer. And if by chance you do see any tiny bubbles in the decal itself, which I do not, so far it's perfect, what you can do is you can take the clear layer back, lay it back down over it, and try to work the bubble out. But so far, there's no creases, bubbles, nothing. All right, guys, there you go. That's how to do a larger decal. Again, this works whether you're doing a decal on a motor like this or you're placing it somewhere else. Same exact principle will work just about anywhere. All right, so I'll give you a nice close-up look at how smooth it is on the motor. No bubbles or anything at all. So I'm just going to go ahead and repeat the process for every decal that they sent me. You can see I already put the small blue Mercury emblem back here, but we also have the Optimax sticker and a couple other Mercury decals that we have to replace. So let me go ahead and do that. It's just going to be the same exact process. I'm not going to waste your time by showing you, but I'll give you a look at the finished product when we're all done. One thing I will show you guys is when you're working with like smaller or medium, whatever you want to call this size decal, you can still use, you can just kind of eyeball it if you want to, peel the backing off and place it down. I don't like to do that because again, you may get a crease. I've already done, you know, the little thing with my finger, got all the little air pockets out between the decal and that clear top layer. But what I like to do, I've already prepped the surface, cleaned it with alcohol, same exact process that I showed you. What you can do with these smaller or medium-sized decals, get it placed exactly where you want it. Just take a single piece of blue tape, place it on the top, and we're going to kind of use it as almost like a hinge. So let me just eyeball this, make sure it's exactly where I want it. So once it's exactly where you want it, using that tape as a hinge, you can pull it back, peel off the entire backing, and now do the same thing we did with our hand, use our hand almost as like a spreader, and just very slowly work our way down, get it started up the top, and then just kind of work our way down with our hand. Once you go over it with your hand, peel back that top layer, and again, absolutely perfect. No air bubbles, no pockets or anything. All right, we just placed the last couple on the front of the motor. So there's a look at the finished product. Again, I got this as a set. The color is Ranger Blue, if you like the color. They do offer other shades of blue, of course. But I couldn't be happier. I really feel it just kind of ties the boat in, the whole color scheme of everything with the talons and the carpet decals and blah, blah, blah. But there you have it, guys. It's that easy to remove the old decals off your motor cowling and place these new ones. If you do it properly, if you follow these simple steps, no issues whatsoever. It comes out perfect, no bubbles, no creases, no nothing. So I couldn't be happier. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below, and we'll catch you on the next video. Take care, guys.